20, 30.
We'll call to order the regular school board meeting for Thursday, January 19th, 2023. It is the mission of the Solon School District to engage each and every student in rigorous and relevant learning experiences, maximizing achievement through exceptional teaching. Natalie, you can call the roll.
All right, Wolf.
Here.
Haluska.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Coons is absent.
On his way.
Oh, Coons on his way. We have Rockholtz is absent and your student representative Ben Campman is absent.
Okay. So break my thing here. Scroll down the agenda while I fix my laptop.
Celebrations. Did you welcome visitors?
Oh. I can't do anything without my laptop working. Welcome everyone who's came to join us tonight in this gloomy weather outside. Days are getting longer, I think, maybe. And so hopefully we'll have warmth and a clear track for track season soon, according to Mr. Silvers, who doesn't want to be shoveling snow apparently when practice starts. So, celebration of achievements.
Yeah, two that we want to recognize. Our archery team took third place in the Iowa NASP Bullseye Tournament, state tournament. And then our 7th grade choir was selected to perform at the Savannah Banana Game in Des Moines in August. I'm not sure what the Savannah Banana
I didn't
Game
know
is.
my kids still in here.
And the game is, you know?
It's baseball.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
The Harlem Globetrotters in baseball.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, cool.
interesting.
So our 7th grade choir will perform.
Focus on learning.
Do
Middle
we-
school math.
Do we want to, and I don't want to hold you guys longer, but do we want to maybe do an admin report and stall just a little bit so Dan can be present?
Sure,
Yeah,
we'll delay them longer.
okay. It'll just maybe 5 minutes. Oh, hey, Melissa, let's do, do you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay, yeah.
We're gonna talk about Dreambox.
We're gonna talk about Dreambox. So I wanted to give a little math update for you. This year we have been really trying to determine how we can help support kids, not just with our new math curriculum, but providing a little bit of enrichment, providing a little bit of practice and skill and drill for some students. So we have been doing a Dreambox pilot. Dreambox is a software that allows kids to work in a game style format to practice a lot of the skills and concepts being taught in the classroom. This particular software is in alignment with not only the Iowa Core, but also with our new Perspectives curriculum. It was recommended to us by one of our representatives that we work with new Perspectives. So we decided to do a pilot, which only gave us 90 seats. So we had to be strategic in how we determined who we were going to be putting into the Dreambox system. So we started with our map screener. So this is our test to kind of check in 3 times a year where kids are at in their math development and progress. This is one of those pieces that is more of a standardized assessment for us to use in addition to our ISS testing and our classroom performance data. So we give it 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. And then it can give us detailed reports by school, by grade, by class. We can look at individual student profiles and we'll break down skills and concepts for where kids are having strengths and where kids need areas of improvement to help us really fine tune some of the intervention pieces that we're trying to work on getting in place for math. So this is our current math data. And right before Christmas break, we took our 2nd round of math testing. And you can see on the top, the barred sections, first one is 4th grade, the second one is 5th grade. And this is showing us where in the spectrum of low to high achievement students are falling in and about the percentage in each class. When you look at those in that orange zone, somewhere around halfway of what would be considered proficient scoring, and then slightly above average, average, and advanced are the yellow, green, and blue respectively. It will also give us, the map data will give us a projected achievement score for ISAS testing. In the spring last year, we were somewhere close to 70% of our students proficient in math. This is projecting us to be at about 80% proficient. It's all of that yellow plus that little bit of blue. So we're hoping that that's pretty accurate. We'll see where it's at. But that would be promising for us and all the work we've put in now too. So that's just kind of giving you an overview of how we're using it. But what we're really looking at in this data was which kids do we want in the Dreambox system? We knew that we had our PLC facilitator in the SIS building, that's Jared Galpin and Jess Bremeyer. And so we said their entire class will be using Dreambox. And then we wanted to take the other kids that are in that red zone. We were able to dip in just a little bit into that orange zone in order to fill our 90 seats within Dreambox. So this is where the screener really helped us identify who we want in that system. So come into play Dreambox. Or I guess I'll show you, here is the blue here is looking at 4th grade data, where we're at with maps in the fall. The red is winter and the goldish color is the norm where they would be expected to perform. We're showing growth from blue to red, which is great. The class 4 doesn't have a blue because that would be McKenna Walden's class in this scenario, and she was not here when we did the first assessment. They were in 4 sections. So and then 5th grade data is there. Again, every class is showing a little bit of growth. And we're excited about where this is taking us. Then we tried to dig in a little bit deeper in consideration of Dreambox. So I've kind of already gone through all of that information for you, so we'll skip ahead to the data. This is showing you the progress students have made since the beginning of the year in Dreambox. So this is for those 90 kids that are working in this. It's about 10 to 15 minutes a day for the students that are in Dreambox. So that's all of Jared's class, all of Jess's class, plus those kids that were identified in the red and or a little bit of that orange section. So you're looking at how many lessons they have used and how many standards they have become proficient in over the course of the year. So it's looking really good. And if you could see that, that's in December. So that changes every month and it's growing by about 6 standards per month is what it seems, looking at the data in that end of it.
So the standards.
The Common Core standards there. So, and different students, different number of lessons. Some of the lessons are harder depending on how advanced some of the kiddos get. So it might take them longer to finish a lesson, whereas some kids might be flying through them because they're just trying to figure out where the gap is for their instruction. So that's showing you a little bit of the growth there through the whole process. And then we looked at our map data will give us a projected growth goal for kids. So what we ended up doing in our winter data set was we pulled each class, and these are up here randomly, but we pulled each class to see in that class, what was the percent of students that met that growth goal, which would put them on target for meeting the norms at the end of the year. You can see by class, we have 5 sections currently in 4th grade. That 5th grade, that class 5 is the class that has Dreambox. So that's looking like a pretty significant difference for where kids are at and the growth that they're able to make. And then in 5th grade, there's 4 sections of 5th grade right now, and indeed class 2 is the class that has Dreambox. So obviously there are other factors here that are influencing what's happening in math, but we're seeing some really good stuff across the board. One of the things after I looked at this data, Josh and I kind of geeked out a little bit on data stuff and like what else might we want to know. Talked to the admin team about it too, so we kind of came around the table and just said, when you look at this data, what are some things that you think about? And then I tried to take that back to our team to really dig into it. Teachers looked at this data and tried to identify what factors might be coming into play. One big one that Josh and the administrative team were questioning and wondering about was just teacher self-efficacy. How confident do we feel in teaching math in particular to our students, knowing that we have a new curriculum and knowing that most of our undergrad experience in college is really focused on the literacy end of things. Very seldom do you have a real deep dive into math instruction. So we wanted to try and cross-reference some of that. So that's some of the work that we're doing behind the scenes as well. And then if there is some lower teacher self-efficacy, thinking about how can we help bolster that for teachers, because that in effect does have a large effect size on student performance as well. So in all, we're pretty excited about where we're headed. And we're trying to be strategic in thinking about what role does Dreambox have for us in the future, to be able to continue to impact and show growth in our math. So that's kind of where we're at.
Now, just clarification, you correct me for the board here. This Dreambox doesn't replace any teacher instruction. It's just an additional 10 to 15 minutes of opportunities for students to practice.
Correct. Most of our teachers are using it during what we call Spartan time. So it's time when teachers are providing intervention in small groups to kids. And then other students are at their desk working independently. This is one of those options for those kids that are in Greenbox to utilize. In Jess and Jared's class, they have a designated 15 minutes where every child is on Greenbox at the same time. But then they also utilize that as an opportunity to pull kids back and work one-on-one if they need to for something quick. Just because they're the pilot classrooms, but otherwise, yes, it's within that Spartan time. And it does not even replace, like, we have students that are on math intervention. This is one way for them to continue to build and practice, but it does not replace for intervention instruction as we would look at it for future services for students and IEPs and things like that either. So it's just another added benefit, you could say, to practice and skill.
Is there any way they could do this at home?
Yes, they can and they do. Their login will go, they don't have to be at school or on the school server to do that, which is a really nice component to it. I'm not sure how many, when you look at overall the 90 seats, I wouldn't even say 10% of them are using it at home right now. But there are some that will, you know, I would say maybe 5-ish kids maybe in total.
Because it's in a game like,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
They may
kids
be more
really
apt
love
to it
Yeah,
at home.
it's also adaptive, so it takes a while for the Dreambox system to say, here's where this kid's performance is tending to be and what they're ready for and learning. Which has been really helpful for us in looking at intervention things too, because we have gone back to Dreambox and said, where is Dreambox identifying the first gap in content? And then that's helping us form an instruction for intervention as well, so.
That is a great question. So of the 90 seats, would we be able to tell if that's being accessed at home?
Only if kids tell us, and there's only a few
Okay.
kids that, you know, parents have either reached out and said, hey, my students are asking about their Dreambox login. It's not something we've advertised widely because not every student in school has access to Dreambox.
Right.
What is amazing, I mean, I'm a numbers guy and the numbers really don't lie when you're kind of going through it, so just that extra 10-15 minutes, it's kind of crazy to see the difference.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it was exciting for us to
And
do.
it's, what would be interesting, because I'm gonna use that too. Switching rooms, to Dreambox.
Absolutely.
And, you know, what I mean, now take this group that's here, I'll take this group over here, I'll give them Dreambox for a while and see if that does work. You know what I mean, because, you know, sometimes you get certain people and certain that take off and, you know, the issue is a lot of, you know, there's a lot of variables still here that need to be, but
Yeah.
now from an admin perspective, let's say we really find Dreambox to be very beneficial. What does it cost us for everyone?
Right.
You know what I mean? If that, if we can determine that this is
Mhm.
like, this is great for every kid, and
Yeah.
those are things we probably.
And part of the conversation that Mel and I need to have with especially Jared and Jess is, okay, let's talk through this, and even those teachers who have students who are using it for intervention, let's make some recommendations in terms of, you know, time, structure within the classroom, those types of things, and then expand. I think this data speaks for itself to be able to say, okay, now let's go the whole building and just kind of build another piece to see what impact it has building wide. To support our kids, and then have conversations. Do we continue to build it? What's nice about intermediate is it's a smaller building, so it's easier to control some things.
So I was gonna ask that, is that why you chose 4th and 5th? Because control and that's kind of the age you want to hit this?
Really, it just kind of developed because we really dove in probably in over our heads with new perspectives last year. Whereas I don't think Lakeview was really quite at that spot last year. And so because we were digging in so much, it was something that with our conversations with our new perspectives representative, Ryan Dent, he kept saying, I really think what you guys are looking for is Dreambox. I really think what you're asking about will be provided through Dreambox. And so Josh and I talked, as well as Emily Mosier, who's our building instructional coach. And and try to strategically think about, well, what would that look like, which is why we ended up with the pilot.
The New Perspectives doesn't own Dreambach, and it's a whole separate company, but
They're complimentary.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
not on purpose.
yeah, right, it's pretty,
Also is the founder, is that the right word?
yeah.
Of New Perspectives, does sit on the board for the Dreambox software company. So she has a lot of say and input, which does affect, a lot of the strategies you're seeing in Dreambox are in alignment with New Perspectives. So still working with that developmental approach, but not being as explicit with it, even in a game format, which is really cool to see. But a couple of things I think is really cool is, as teachers have been looking at data, or they're in their planning meetings and CLT times and stuff, there've been a couple of times where the other teachers are like, but like Jared or Jess will say, well, my kids, when I saw this, are saying blah, 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 and they're like blown away by it. And then it's, well, where did you see that? Where did you hear that? Well, it was in my Dreambox lesson. It was in my Dreambox lesson. So the other teachers are like jealous because they're like, dang, my kids don't have access to that. So it's been pretty fun to hear and see the progress to it. So yes.
There's separate data that shows just the intervention kids, how much they have improved.
I have pulled it. I did not pull it for this. I would say some of it has been dependent upon the fidelity of utilizing that 10 to 15 minutes every day. So I would say most of the data right now, the kids that would have been identified as intervention, even though they were in Jess or Jared's class, have shown that growth, but not all of them in the other classes have. I would say about half of those that are in the other classes have. But again, it comes back to those two classrooms with the pilot have been very intentional with their time in Dreambox, whereas the others haven't been quite as tied to it.
I think when I initially looked at some of the data, because I tried to look at just the amount of lessons or time that those intervention kids are on there, it's probably significantly less than those intentional classrooms, so
Definitely.
we probably wouldn't see probably a significant growth, which I mean would be expected. Yeah, we're excited about the results and having further conversation on that stuff.
That was good.
Which should be really awesome. You guys are doing it.
Going back to middle school now,
We delayed.
and just so we get on our record, Dan arrived at 5:34. Normally I would interrupt, but I didn't want to interrupt anybody to say it out loud while Mel was talking, so. So we've got that on the record now, and there's buzzing somewhere.
Tell Sean we need a new cord.
Wasn't buzzing earlier.
Natalie, can you hold it?
Yeah, like the old TV sets.
Yes.
Don't move, you're on the road.
Yeah. Right there.
That's right.
You're getting ready to go there in terms of dial.
When they were like, "Sorry, Mom, I'm wrong." So I was my dad's room.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the dial had like a, well, like a bunch of them, but yeah. This would be fun. I could bring it back.
But you said it.
It's not good. Whenever you test it, it's really-
Sorry, let me find it out for you.
I'm not a bit. She's 6.
Oh, it was green.
I'm not gonna-
Hold it, Natalie.
All right. See?
All right, hi everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Brendan McNulty. I'm the 8th grade math teacher over at SMS. So we're here tonight to kind of showcase our new curriculum that we've been utilizing and implementing this year, the Desmos math curriculum. Currently specifically for 6th through 8th, but they are implementing, almost fully implemented in the 9th grade algebra as well. So what I've got up here to start is just kind of an example of what the kids might see on a daily basis in terms of an activity. First off, you'll notice all the names on there. This is actually one of my classes, and we have the ability to anonymize it because students do a lot of typing, sharing and responding to each other. And so I personally use the anonymized feature just because kids are more apt to share their thoughts when they're talking math. So that's just what that is, but those are my actual fourth period students. We won't go through all of this. You want to go to that, first one, go click on the student tab, please.
Yes.
So a lot of these have a process to it with a warm up, some activities, some synthesis, some reflection, and some cool down for each one. So this is an example of introducing proportional relationships and linear relationships to our 8th grade students. This is a starting point for them. This was actually the first activities of our second unit this year. And so in this one, it's asking them to watch the animation and then write a story about what you see. And you're gonna see, you wanna show those?
Yeah.
So this is what I see on my end. For example, student number 1. But as you go through, you see different levels of explanations for people. Some keep it very simple. Some actually take it to heart when it says write a story, and they add a lot more detail to it. But it's nice. I get a snapshot of what they are doing when they're working individually or in groups, and I can see that on my screen while they're doing it on theirs. Should we? You want to take a snapshot?
Oh, sure.
So I also have the ability, or we have the ability, when a student's screen is working, or a student is working, I can select a specific student like this. And yeah, maybe the 2 of them. And we can present that to the class. It presents them without names. And we can then pose questions like, hey, person over here thought this, do we agree, do we disagree? And we can look at student responses as a whole group and respond and reflect and think about those things, which is pretty nice. The kids, anytime they have a response, more often than not, it says share with class. And so their peers, while they're working, can read their responses and see if those other peers' responses match theirs, or if they have different thinking. I feel that my students do a better job of really looking at everybody's when I present specific ones to them. And I can present them examples of good stuff. I can present them examples of stuff that's not great, but with it being anonymous, nobody really knows who it is. So that's a nice feature for us on that as well. And then, so it's going to take you through, I don't know, if you want to just go through, there's different presentation things, different types of questions, but you'll notice that a lot of these things will ask for an explanation as opposed to just an answer, which is a really big part of the Desmos curriculum. The ability to get our kids to think about math and not only think about it, but explain it. And hopefully then be able to communicate their thinking in a positive way to their peers, to their teacher. And I know for me personally, if I had a snapshot of my kids week 1 with this, because it was new for them, to where they are now, it's pretty cool to see the level of their ability to explain math in words from where they started. Emmy, do you want to can you go to slide 6?
Yes.
And can you look up? So at the top on the left above that graph over there, they have the ability to use sketch tools. And so they can mark up their graphs, they can edit it, whatever, they can change colors, a whole bunch of stuff, they can add text. And this is a feature that's really nice for our kids that do struggle with putting their thoughts into words. And so that is for me an acceptable way to explain yourself as well, is to model and show those things. So that's kind of nice that they have that feature. And more often than not, most screens will have that ability to sketch. So, do you want to go to the end of it? So go to the synthesis. So the lessons then try to bring these things together. And like this example says, choose one and respond to it. So they can be choosing something that they may have had success with and being able to explain that. And then at the end in the cool down, it's just kind of a quick reflection over the entire activity from all the main ideas. And then at the end, there's a really quick snapshot survey about how well did you understand it and how did you feel about the learning that we did, along with the targets provided. And so that's something that I've asked the kids to take serious more often, because sometimes they don't know about their own. So I'm like, okay, be honest, give me the question mark then. Because on my end, then I see that grouped and I can see names of kids that all had really good smiley faces, and I can see the ones that have the frowns. And it's just a quick way for me to assess on a daily level, how kids are doing. So just a good formative assessment for us there. Each activity then transitions into, and we don't have to show that right now, but it'll transition into what you might consider the homework or the practice like we might have traditionally had in school. And it ties directly to the activity that's being completed, and it gives the students the ability to see if their answers are correct. So when they're typing something or selecting something, at the end, there's a reflection piece that says, hey, it's correct, good job, or no, you need to go back and take a look at it. So giving them instant feedback on this is a nice feature for them. So that's a quick, any questions over that? There's a lot more to this. Show them the summary page, please, at the top.
Of this.
Yeah, and that's just a class snapshot. I can scroll through and I can see where kids are at. Usually the dots mean that the question's been answered, but it might be an explanation, so it's not right or wrong for sure. The ones that are checks and X's are the either right or wrong. There's no in between. So just, again, quick formative snapshots for us as teachers to look at while the activities are going on, helps us be able to, I think, more easily address students right away in the class period itself, as opposed to getting homework turned in, seeing how they did, grading it, then giving it back. It's a very immediate feedback for them, which has been very helpful for us.
Brandon, is this like one a day?
It depends. So they're typically paced out for 40-minute lessons. I find that more often than not, I go into multiple days, because it's not just the kids sitting and working. We pace this out. Annie, show them the greatest feature. We can, the greatest, all right, show the pacing. So if I want, I can say, hey, kids, I need you to do slides 4 through 6. And so I can pace them, and it takes them to there. They can't go forward. They can't go backwards. It's just that. And if I need to then stop, so after I pace something, we might come back, reflect as a group, talk with table partners. So it takes more time than if they were just sitting, doing every slide and then being done with it. So a lot of discussion then takes place during it. And then when we are discussing, and because they have the ability to draw and type and do bunches of things that might be distracting, we can go ahead and just pause, and that will shut down all their screens so they can't do anything while we're trying to pause. If you ever want to come into class and just see the response, like, you think that they know that it's coming.
Yeah.
But as soon as I click pause, it is like
Turn off the Wi-Fi.
So, sorry, that was a little long-winded, but that's the gist of that. We have assessments, we have quizzes, we have days that are not relying on technology at all. We have paper days, and they're actually classified as that. They allow us to take the math that we've been learning and extend it, practice it, and do it on paper as well. Which is nice. We don't really have issues with not having internet, but if we ever did, that's something that we have a nice go-to to back us up there.
So on a typical normal day, come in and sit down in the back of the room for 40 minutes, what would we observe?
A normal day is gonna be, if it's an activity day,
Okay.
like with this, is going to be individual work time usually, partner work time, group discussions, full class discussions. Me circulating, if I co-teach like with special ed, they're working with all students in there as well.
Okay.
So a lot of moving pieces is probably what would be happening. But I think the other cool thing with this, as opposed to maybe handing a kid a piece of paper, can I use your daughter as an example? If you come into her class and listen to her and her partners talk, it's really cool to listen to their conversations because they're guided. And they have talking points because of this that they have to focus on. And I feel that it's a little bit more engaging for them.
Mhm.
That's in the aspect of discussion and facilitating and then having to respond to it on here and share with the class, it opens a lot more doors for that.
Were you, how new is this having your hands on? Is it just this year?
So this is the first year that we've implemented it fully. In my previous district and last year, I used Desmos because it actually started as like a supplemental math. I don't want to call it a curriculum because it wasn't a curriculum until they designed this, but it was just supplemental math stuff, activities, the ability to use graphing calculators, small activities that had, they called them, what did they have? Collections. So they might have like a linear algebra collection or a geometry collection. So it's not new totally to me, but I know these guys had a little experience with it last year.
I'm not in third grade.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna do that. This isn't even. I was in third grade anymore.
It is very different than how it originally was. It's much more prescribed, which for me, I'm kind of a hands-on, like I like to do the curriculum stuff, but this has allowed me to focus on the delivery and not so much the design and features. It's written very well.
Did you dabble any in new perspectives last year?
So yes, we did. Yeah, in third grade, we did do some new perspectives and I see just the way they're getting, right, new perspectives is getting them to think and not just boom, here's what you do, here's the algorithm. Desmos is very much the same way. And then Pam Harris, who I'll talk about in a little bit, is also that same way, not just getting them, here's the algorithm, but you kind of figure it out. And like in my class, we talk about it being mucky water.
Yeah.
And getting messy and challenging them. And so this is really, they like that. And that's, I would say that they're very complimentary of each other.
I would say last year, we primarily at the middle school, we introduced illustrative, which it's very similar curriculum wise, but the delivery here is just much better. I think I know all of you,
Yes.
Justin, right, seventh grade math. So we just kind of outlined some of our successes and challenges we've had so far. Brendan hit on a few of them. You know, obviously it's the interactive part of it. I think it's really good. It makes it more engaging for a lot of students. You know, he mentioned the idea of, you know, being able to share ideas. It made me think of, you know, he was talking about anonymizing the students. Because I tried to get a little bit of student feedback this afternoon. I said, hey, we're gonna talk to you guys. What do you guys think? And so some of the things that came from students, you know, they said things like easier to. Some said it's not as easy to show work on the iPad, whereas other students would say, you know, they like that aspect of being all the way on there. A lot of students like the fact that the calculator is built in there. But the big thing, and I would say from teachers, at least my perspective, is that, and Brendan mentioned as well, is just that immediate feedback. You know, that's the biggest thing I notice. You know, it's like I don't have to wait till the next day. You know, with a lot of students, I can see right away they're struggling here on this, and I can go to them right away and kind of, you know, hey, what are we having trouble with, you know, and get them kind of back on the road quicker, per se. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's funny that you guys come in because I have to take a group of girls. They all switch, but they go to like a basketball practice and they have and I usually try to zone out, but they were actually talking about math the other day. So if there's a lesson, you get that instant feedback, you could just say, hey, we're gonna redo this. Like nobody got it. I could see 80% of the people, because that's what they were saying. And I didn't say anything, I was just kind of listening, but it was interesting to hear them talk because there's some 6th and 7th graders with the 8th grade, and they're asking, hey, what's it like in social studies or math? And they were kind of saying, yeah, like if you don't get it, they can just hit the button and boom, we can kind of go over this again or no, which I thought was pretty interesting. And they're having that discussion with a group of friends, you know, so it's not pretty cool. And then you guys come in and talk about it. It's interesting as a parent to hear it. And that's exactly how they're describing it.
And we learned through our conversations that because I focus on 8th and she's 6th and he's 7th, we don't look at each other's curriculum very often. But the more we talk about it, we realize like, hey, that turtle time trials that I just showed you here, he does something that's based off of the same thing. So it really shows the connection amongst from grade to grade, which is cool for us. So I'll be interested next year to turn on an activity and the kids be like, this looks familiar. So that'll be nice.
Yep.
There's a lot of
But
consistency.
like you were mentioning though, so one of the things the students mentioned, they like the immediate feedback, just, the same way we do. But that's only on their practice portion. One of the things the students mentioned to me is, I would wish I had that immediate feedback more on the lesson part. Well, the lesson part is where we, like I say, we pause them and we talk about it more. So it's not, because on the practice stuff, they do a problem, they go, whoa, scroll to the end, did I get it right? Nope, scroll back, But that part is nice. So often with the initial lesson part, we get to that synthesis kind of part at the end as they're working on it. And if I look at that, after class and I go, ooh, it's like, I think you mentioned, it's kind of like a nice little formative assessment exit ticket. And I can look at that and go, well, half of us got that synthesis wrong, so we need to go back, and that's often where we'll start. Because what I found, you asked about how many they do. So what I've kind of found works for 7th grade right now, and in my classes, we'll do a lesson, get through a lesson one day, and then the next day we'll do the practice portion. And so oftentimes what we'll do is start out the following day on the practice day, looking at that and, okay, well, half of us didn't do very well on this. So let's go back and revisit it and talk about what we did yesterday before we start doing the practice. One of the challenges has been, it's, a lot of kids are like, well, I don't have a reference. It's not like we just got done doing things with formulas for circles, and they have to remember the formula, and they go, well, I don't have a reference like a textbook. That makes it harder. And so one of the challenges has been to get kids in a habit of, even though we're working on an iPad, we still need to have a notebook out there. There's times when we got to write notes and take notes and things. And so the students that are having an easier time or seeing success, they're really good about doing that. And then, students that don't, it's more of a struggle, and it's just getting them to understand that, okay, just because we have a piece of technology, we still need to write down things and keep things, that we can reference later.
And as a 6th grade teacher, I'm trying to now, as we've seen that, implement that more like, okay, we're gonna take these notes together, like teach them, because they don't know how to do that. And so teaching them how to do that and reading. So that's something I'm really trying to, so then hopefully it makes it easier for the two of them.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's a learning curve for us as well, because typically we wouldn't have to tell kids, okay, you got to write this down because it's right there presented in the textbook, and so that's something I know personally I'm working through. I said, hey, and I referenced, hey, we need to write this down, and I need to be more, I have to be much more intentional about that right up front.
Well, it would be easier to be a passive learner in these systems, you're just kind of following along and, the studies, if you write stuff down, you remember it more than you don't. Just like you said, teaching them, this active learning stuff, really cements it in. And the great part is, like, this has been my thing, I don't know much about teaching, but I coach. And so that immediate feedback, like you see something happen right then, and the ability to correct it right then, as opposed to get a test for 30, 60 kids, whatever, go through them over the weekend, then try to come back a few days later and try and tell them what they did, the ability to catch them right then, I think it's huge.
That's by far my favorite thing. So I mean, like I said, just trying to think if there's anything else that, but yeah, like we talked about kids don't like it when we stop them, but like that's because there's something important we gotta talk about. And it's interesting, you know, I can see, it's also easy to be able to see which kids are not on task. Cause we're stopped, but yet they're still smiling that they're, like, what's, you know, they got a game going there or something, you know, so that's. Yeah, but otherwise, like I said, I think the engagement is a good, really positive thing.
How does it work with differentiation? So, you know, you've got kids at these different spectrums, you know, I wasn't sure does it take different tracks so you can say, okay, you know, you're going through this faster, so we're gonna increase the difficulty level or.
There are kind of like challenge, there's things called explorers at the end that are pretty challenging, and so like, so if there's opportunities for kids to do more challenging things. Now, like, for example, I have an accelerated group that we just kind of go through it, like, we go through a lesson and a practice all in one day versus 2 days, so we kind of move at a quicker pace. They don't need as much to stop and talk about it oftentimes, but I mean, there's times when we do, and it's easy to tell that, you know, but yeah, I mean, I put in a few, you know, supplemental things like challenge things here and there, but a lot of those explore things, they're pretty tough, and a lot of the kids can't, and I'm like, well, it's just there, do the best you can on it, you know.
And I believe the curriculum also, you all can see 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if there's potential there that, so if like at 8th grade, maybe you need to back up, we need to go back and revisit the 6th grade for kids, or there's a potential for, we can maybe move to 7th grade or 8th grade, potentially material too. So that was one of the selling points for me was, you have access to all of it.
And just on that, he talked about the extension spectrum. That's what I would say is more of the remediation spectrum, would be having the ability to move back in grade levels within a lesson. No, it's pretty, besides the extension stuff, it's pretty universal. So there's not like a path to choose like, hey, you didn't get this, let's go over here and try some other stuff. That's when the teacher has to intervene. And maybe if we're seeing a whole group or a whole class period, that's when the next day we have to supplement with something that's not part of the curriculum, just to kind of bring those ideas together. So I'd say it's a very universal curriculum that needs supplementing at each grade level, but we can utilize the other grade levels to take it back a step for kids because they're connected. Like, if he goes and does the turtle time trial, similar activity, that's going to specifically focus on proportionality and not necessarily the idea in 8th grade where we're focusing on the linear side of the algebra and becoming familiar with the equations that go along with it. So it's all scaffolded through the grades.
I'm glad you said that actually, because I didn't think of that, and that's one of the things that we've already discussed is if this group gets through, we get through all of our 6th grade curriculum and which units would we have them do, and I could pull them from the 8th grade.
Okay, so we have just kind of the next steps since it is a brand new curriculum, and I'm Emmy Williams, 6th grade math teacher, not 3rd grade anymore. So developing and determining, like we talked about, supplemental practices and how can we help support kids on both ends of the spectrum. Sharing just students' thoughts through Desmos, so just continuing to see how students think and what they're looking at and thinking about it. Continued development for best practice of implementation. So like next week, we're going into each other's classrooms to observe how we're using Desmos in each other's classrooms. And so we can learn from each other, and then we're going to go with, like, they're going to come to my room on Monday, and then during our open period, we're going to go debrief about what they're seeing in my room, what maybe I should be doing differently, what's working well, and kind of have those conversations, and then we'll take turns going into each other's classrooms. And then just looking forward to, since I do kind of know from where they're coming from Lakeview and SIS, just seeing how what they've been and how that's going to transition into when they get up to 6th grade. I know when I looked at 5th grade, kids say, and you hear adults say, I don't like math, I hate math, I'm no good at math. Nobody as an adult says, I'm not a good reader, right? So, I'm just trying to change that, and that's what I think this is trying to do too, is trying to change that. And so that's kind of it on Desmos. Do you guys have anything else you want to add? So,
I didn't mention it, we talked about the activity, but our assessments are based off of this as well. And we have the option to do them digitally, which is formatted very similar to an activity, so they're used to the format from doing the activities and the practice, and so they're seeing that in the assessments as well. We do have the ability to do paper versions of it too. I know the content that Emmy's doing currently is gonna lend itself better to doing it on paper than digitally, I think. So we have options there, and I've been a big fan of the assessment, but the rubrics that go along with it, and then giving that feedback to the kids. So that's been good.
and then we were also lucky enough to have Pam Harris come and do a day on a PD with us. Pam Harris, came and taught a lesson in each one of our classrooms, and she's not like a curriculum or anything, but it's more of a way of thinking about math and teaching math and getting kids not to just memorize those algorithms, but see connections between numbers, relationships between numbers, how do they work? And just because I see it one way doesn't mean that's the way you're gonna see it, but helping students see it different ways. She is a big fan of math is figure outable, which is my favorite thing to say. And so, but just getting kids to work together and not just memorize that algorithm, which is perfect coming from new perspectives, that it is more of that thinking. And again, not just I'm good at math because I can memorize something, but I'm good at math because I'm a problem solver and can use what I already know to solve what I'm trying to figure out. And so that was awesome. And so we appreciate having her come in. She taught a lesson in each of our classes. Then we got to go after she taught it and debrief again about what she did, and probably some of the best learning that I have had, and maybe having somebody come on into your classroom is great to see. And then you can actually observe how your students are thinking. So I think that that's kind of how math is going at the middle school this year. So, do you have any questions for?
I'll just say, you know, as a parent, like I get going on parent teacher conferences and all that, I'm just amazed at how much math has kind of changed from back in our days, right? Like the interaction and the writing component, it's really different. And it's cool to see, right? To think about it, you just don't say, well, that's the answer and that's it. Explaining it, all the different thought processes. I don't know how to make it. I was gonna like just look at it, but you guys are doing some really good stuff and it's great to see, so.
But it's been something we've been talking about for a while, you know, trying to get math curriculum to be similar to our English curriculum. We can intervene with these kids at the right times and push them where you need to push them, and grab you, pull back where you need to. And you know, the Hawkins curriculum that is very much about teachers teaching teachers. Well, you guys are doing this basically essentially in math, and it's something I know Dave's and I talked about several years ago. You know, I was like, well, what's the Lucy talking from math? You know what I mean? And they're like, well, there isn't one. But we're getting close. You know what I mean? And I don't think there's one curriculum. I think you guys are finding great ways to piece all this stuff together. And yeah, you guys have new perspectives had to be challenged, but it's the right word for these kids. I mean, Adam's right. We used to just, well, that's just because that's the answer. You know, we never explained it really, so it's going to be powerful. So I appreciate you guys doing work.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night, guys.
It's a long way from my packet math that Josh says we can't go back to.
Yeah.
Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anything else on admin reports? Or is that it?
No.
Everything?
Yep, and just with the superintendent report, just update you on the bond, we needed the 435 signatures, we got just about 100 more than what we needed, got those submitted, so next steps will be just to get information out to the public.
And the auditor's office did appreciate that Chris had gone through and struck the ones that were not valid, so that they knew.
Yeah,
This was Tim, I was talking to him on the way down, he thought it was gonna be a quick drop off and.
No,
No.
Chris did not mention that I actually had to stand there while they did paperwork. So just drop it off on your way to work. And then she went to Hawaii.
Yeah. So I sent you a link to, that we'll have on our website. A brochure will go out to every household. There'll be a QR code, so families, homes, residents can either just access our website. There'll be a page dedicated to information, or they'll be able to just hit that QR code and it'll take them to that page for information that they may have. We're also gonna be available at many of our home events. People that were on the steering committee, they've signed up to be available with brochures and just to answer questions. I'll be attending the Solon Women's Club at the library on February 9th. And then on February 13th, over the lunch hour in the lobby of this facility, Iowa Street facility, at the CFA on the 13th from 5:30 to 6:30, and then at the Legion that night from 7 to 8 to do just be available presentation of what the bond's about and answer questions. And then March 7th will be the vote. And the flyer will have all that information on polling sites, where people can go to vote, along with the information about the bond. So other than that, we just one quick, I thought Zach might be here, but we had I think the Economist is going to run a story on it, but we had a big last Tuesday, a big ICAP day, Iowa Career Academic Planning Day, and each grade level had different plans at the high school. I just know Josh and I are most familiar with the freshmen because every freshman signed up for, I think they had maybe like 12 choices, 8 to 12, somewhere that range, choices on careers that they may have interest in. And we actually took them on site for a half a day, either AM or PM, to experience that, to have someone available to walk them around, talk about it and things like that. And so it was a very productive day and a first experience for just a kind of a hybrid job shadow for all of our freshman kids. So.
And also, in addition to our website, the auditor already has their page up as well for the ballot. So
Good.
Early voting starts on Wednesday, February 15th at the auditor's office, and can go through Monday, March 6th. So
That information, Sue will put that out too from ISG, information to everyone on how to get an absentee ballot or.
that information, I think, just went out on the website, I think yesterday. So
Good.
I thought I saw a Twitter feed posted by himself.
We've done this in the past, and I don't know if we have anything in school or, you know, what I mean, how.
We looked at a satellite
Yeah.
voting, but we don't have any events that fit into that window of within 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, fair
So March 7th, you know, that's things are, yeah.
And so, yeah, and if you know anybody that's gonna do an absentee ballot, that would be by February 20th, request to be in the auditor's office. So as a reminder, we're in a spot where where this outside committee is kind of driving this, we're here to answer the questions and observational. Yep. And I think that's kind of where we're at. Next up is committee updates. I don't know that I had anything on the agenda for this month to talk about. We're gonna start digging into the budget. And so we'll have more information on that. So Cassie and I need to meet and talk with Pat and Davis and move forward on that. And I have some light reading. I was gonna have Josh just read the entire foreign service policy out loud during the meeting tonight. But I thought that would be bad. So consent agenda. Anything need to get pulled out?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
Motion by Leska. Second by Coon. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up
Hard copy.
is the calendar.
There's a hard copy. That's just a proposed calendar for the fiscal year 25. On the one side, it just breaks down key dates And then the front is just the same format we've always done. Again, we looked at this last month and it is the rollover of the continuous calendar that we've had the last 4 or 5 years, pretty consistent.
We checked, make sure we don't have any. The hiccups we had last year, in terms of what we had last year, where we had to come back and make an adjustment afterwards. So the year before.
Was the year before, I think.
It's supposed to be, is it supposed to be 4 days or 3 days?
Which one?
Beginning in August, 19, 20, 21, 22.
Yeah. It's. Didn't get take off. Yeah, that didn't get take off from last time. So August 19th is nothing. We have 3 days with teachers prior to the start of the year. So
So that's gonna be no school, right? No school, no teachers, the 19th.
yeah, no school for teachers or students on the 19th.
Not even new teachers?
Well,
That's
I mean,
outside the
that's-
contract.
Yeah, those are all.
That's all
extra-
outside the
extra
contract.
added.
Yeah. Doesn't go on the calendar.
doesn't go on
because
the
it'd be
calendar.
outside the calendar. Yeah,
So this is second reading, so the approval here would,
All taking that out.
yes.
Well, there's no.
Not second
It's
reading.
not second reading. We had an information line last one, so it's just.
Just approve that with that removed.
We go down that path, we just have to make sure we do it. So the 23rd would be a full day.
Is that a Monday?
Friday.
Yep.
Yes, it's full day.
Yeah, I know that was just one of the topics that I brought up was, our high school students mentioned. They like
We-
having a partial day, but then we also talked about the fact that it is a Friday, and so there's not that ability to ramp up like we normally, where you go half day.
Whole day and then 2. The question, November 27th. Is off. Typically, we do a partial day on that. No, we do it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
That day-
Tuesday.
That day is the contractual trade-off for the 2 late parent-teacher conferences. So I guess the big question was before approving was, this has us coming back on Thursday,
The second.
January 2nd. And I know since in my tenure here, that's happened once. And there was feedback both ways.
And if we don't come back that day, then it pushes the last day.
Friday.
So Friday, May 30th.
And the second's a half day anyway, since it's Thursday, right?
Yep,
Second.
it would be.
Yeah, I don't see the issue because of what about you guys? Make a motion to approve as presented. Let's do it.
So is it not the 30th?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2024-2025 Solon Community School District calendar as presented.
But let's see, we have to take 19th off, right? Of August.
What do we need to take out? And maybe,
How many high school parent teacher conferences you like 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is this 30th not one? But you don't have a March here, you just have a March here. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So one is, I'm guessing the 30th is not it, right?
well, that's coming up, isn't it? It's coming up. That is one.
Is it not the 16th then?
So high school.
Let me see, you see what I mean? There's 3, there's 4, and there's 5. High school. So one needs to go away.
Where's it at this year?
This one, high school,
So we're talking about January where
high
it's got,
school.
We're talking about high school parent
Three
teacher
high
it's got
conferences.
2 dates highlighted
1,
as
2,
conferences,
3.
but the text says there's 3.
Yeah,
Should be 4. I thought there should be 4.
There should be 4, but there's 5. Well, if you're counting these 3, 4.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the list. 16,
So I guess which
23,
day is
30.
it? Yeah,
so if you look at this year's calendar, don't they have conferences this week, this
Yes,
month? On what day? Is it next week?
I think it's next week, yes.
So it'd coincide with the 23rd. So remove the 16th, right?
I don't know. One of them has to. go
Correct.
up.
It wouldn't be the 16th. I don't believe it would be the 16th.
So remove the 9th as a workshop day in August and remove,
The
and then-
19th.
I'm sorry, yeah, the 19th, and then remove the January 16th as a high school PT, parent teacher conference day.
Because that would be the, yeah. Yep.
And then we'll make sure it's-
So we should be good now.
Oh. But look, if you look on the back, I've got it right.
Oh, okay.
So remove the 30. I'm
Oh.
sorry. This is correct. It just didn't get changed on the most recent calendar.
Okay. I think so.
For the conferences. but it's still-
16, 23rd, not the 3rd.
Yes,
But it's still, the 250 days. is-
correct. Yes, yes.
So it is.
The motion's getting more work out.
It's only August 19th that you have.
The other option you got is,
Everything's
the other
good.
option
The
you got
30th is still good.
until you're off, is to table it till next month and come back with a clean copy.
I think that's better, because.
Okay.
Let's just do that. 'cause
Okay.
then it's not.
We'll
We'll
withdraw this conversation for next week.
All right.
Next board meeting. That's perfect.
Second.
Motion by Alaska, second by Wolf to table to the February board meeting where a clean copy will be presented with the updates that we've talked about.
Perfect.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved and the calendar is tabled until next month. Next up is the high school course planning guide.
That was presented last week. If you, and
Last
if
month?
you, last month, I'm sorry. And if you go into the planning guide, in the table of contents, if it's highlighted, those were changes that were made. Courses, some courses that were added or changed, some prerequisites that were eliminated.
I read this part about the doers, the thinkers, the creators. Is this, that's from like a. You know what part I'm talking about?
Yeah, in the front of
It's in the
that,
very front. Right, so I'm assuming they take some sort of. Test to say they're a creator or they're a helper.
it's, I think it's part of their,
Like
I have a plan, ICAP stuff, yes.
And then those courses come down here and coincide with. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but I was just confirming.
Kind of a personality type index, yeah, yeah.
I'm still thinking, there's one thing I want to pick out, I'm just trying to get there. And my browser does not want to let me do a search for what I'm looking for. So I've got to open it up in the.
T. Williams. I was like, there's a part of it, we paid here. I think I can tell you, it's pretty decent to wait. Your mom was a heck of a mess. You gotta make it out of space. How about those jackrabbits?
So. Yellow coded is
Change.
change, and so particularly the way is moving to triplet, right?
Mhm.
And we're replacing that with the STEM innovator coursework, correct?
Mhm, correct.
And where's the? Any questions on that? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the high school course planning guide as presented.
Motion by Coons,
Second.
second by Wolf. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Lakeview AHU project acceptance. Davis, you wanna?
That's just to approve the final payment. We did that work over the summer to replace a section of the building's heating and cooling, and they've completed it.
Do we have to say any specific verbiage for that?
You have to see what's on the thing, so. Let's just scroll up.
You want that or do you want?
No, we need Pat's magic words. You have to move the project acceptance as complete, approved payment, application, and retainage and release retention through this.
So moved.
So Dan moves to accept the Lakeview AHU project accepted as complete, approved payment of final pay application, retainage and release the retainage in 30 days.
Second,
Second by Alaska. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Informational items, we have none this month. We have the opportunity for board learning tonight if we want to. We are also, Chris did not give us anything. I had shared with Davis and Josh that we could do the one on advocacy if we wanted to. But I think all four of us have been through that one once before, and so I'm not sure if there's a added value tonight in going to do that again. Hearing none, Dan and I will get together and we'll have something figured out for February that's new and exciting for you. Talking points. Jamie, do you want to go first?
I'm a math person.
Yep.
Math was always easy for me, but my kids' brains work differently than mine, so me helping some of my kids with math stuff was impossible because their brains work different. So it's nice to hear now the way they're doing things, that kids can discuss things and get ideas on how other kids' brains do things to help them learn different ways to do things. So that all is really exciting to me because I love math. So all the math stuff is super exciting. I'm glad we're working on that.
Dan,
Well, I just, think the fact that Kathy Fosno and there's Dreambox, New Perspectives, they're all kind of starting to, attach to one another in a way that I think can be super meaningful to our district. And to be honest with you, I don't know if this was all planned out this way, or if we're just kind of been lucky, or it's,
It's been a messy, murky discovery. Because when you look at other districts, the traditional path is you go through this big curriculum process, you get these books, and now you go through this process. And it's really more about, it's not about answer getting, it's not about a book, it's really about the pedagogy and the practice, and then getting kids, really is just about learning. It's not about memorizing, it's not about answer getting, it's really about thinking, learning, growing, persevering, challenging, collaboration. It's all those pieces that we want to see. And getting beyond just, yep, here's your curriculum resource, open to page 5, answer these questions, I'll teach you a little bit, and then we're on our way, which doesn't work for all kids. So I think just that developmental approach is much better.
yeah, same thing. I mean, we talked about Desmos and Dreambox. It's interesting and it's cool to see the teachers kind of accept that and they're finding new ways to teach. And then obviously what we'd like to see too is the collaboration between all three of them and even other buildings. And so, yeah, it's exciting to see. It's come a long way. And the numbers again with the 90 kids, I just kind of wrote down the class 5 and 4th grade, class 2 and 5th that were referenced on the graph. I mean, that's considerable growth numbers for 10-15 minutes of just extra work on Dreambox.
Well, can you imagine if parents, like if it was every kid had dream box, and they could tell parents, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then they can go, but I understand why you can't, you know what I mean?
We want to go slow to go fast.
Right.
I think that's where we are, because I also want to make sure that it doesn't turn, because I've seen in other districts where we just let teachers loose on some technology,
Yeah, sure.
digital piece. And then that just becomes the teaching. Well, that's not what this is all about. This is really about supplementing and practice. We believe in strong teaching practice to be able to support our kids in the core instruction and intervention as well. So,
We didn't leave you much.
No, there's, I think I'll leave it with the, thanks to the community, we pulled together to push us to get the bond initiative moving forward. I think we're in a good spot for that, and we'll leave it up to the community now to figure out what they want to do, and that's kind of where we're at this point in time. Our next regular board meeting is Thursday, February 16th, 2023. We've got nothing between now and then, so at least not right now planned, so. Dan,
February.
Dan and I both have some reading, so I think Chris is hoping we're gonna have first reading of board policy then, so Dan, I'll have to figure out time to get together between now and then. After we've had a chance to go through them. But other than that, I think we're in good shape. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Wolf. Second by Coons. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. You're adjourned.